I installed a camera within my house to know about the activities of my own wife. But what camera captured shocked me badly. I never thought like this. Stay with me till end to support me in this journey of betrayal. It started with a sound. Small, uncertain, the kind you almost convince yourself you imagined. A faint shuffle of feet across the hallway at 12:47 a.m. I remember that number because it burned itself into me, glowing red on the clock beside the bed. I lay there, listening to the silence stretch itself thin. She was asleep beside me, or pretending to be. I couldn't tell anymore. When you stop trusting someone, even their breathing sounds dishonest. The TV was still humming downstairs, painting weak light on the empty sofa. I should have turned it off hours ago, but I couldn't sleep. Not lately. Not since that night 2 weeks ago, when she came home late and smiled the way strangers do. Polite, perfect, detached. Work ran over, she said, and I'd believed her then. At least, I wanted to. The next day, I installed the cameras. Just for safety, I told her, forcing a casual laugh. She didn't ask questions. She didn't even look up from her phone. That was the first clue, wasn't it? When someone stops caring about being watched. It wasn't paranoia. Not at first. It was just this quiet instinct, something animal, that told me I was being made a fool of in my own house. I placed the small black lens above the staircase, another by the kitchen door. Invisible eyes. My eyes. Days passed. Nothing happened. Until that sound. That wrong kind of sound. I slipped out of bed like a thief, the floorboards whispering under my feet. The hallway was dark except for that faint, pulsing blue light from the router. The air was still, heavy, and yet I swore something had just moved. The curtain, maybe, or her shadow. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. Just silence pressing against my ears until I could hear my own pulse. When I finally went back to bed, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and thought, tomorrow, I'll check the footage. It wasn't fear that kept me awake. It was something colder, curiosity, because part of me already knew what I was going to find. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I opened the camera feed on my phone. I scrolled through the night, minute by minute, frame by frame. Empty hallway, still sofa, shadows sliding past like clouds. And then, movement. At 12:47 a.m., a shape crossed the frame. Slow, deliberate. Not her, not me, a man. I froze, thumb hovering over the pause icon. His head turned slightly toward the camera. The light caught his face for half a second. Just enough for my stomach to drop. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone I knew. Someone who'd been in my house before, sitting at that same table, laughing with me. I replayed the moment again, and again, until my heartbeat stopped matching the rhythm of the video. My coffee went cold on the counter, untouched. The sound of the shower upstairs faded into the distance, muffled by the pounding in my ears. That's when the first crack appeared inside me. Not a break. Not yet. Just a thin line of silence, where trust used to live. People think betrayal feels like fire, but it doesn't. It's ice. It's that first cold breath you take after realizing you've been living in someone else's lie. I should have confronted her right then. Should have shouted, demanded, broken something. But instead, I did what I've always done. I watched. And that's when I realized I wasn't just the husband anymore. I was the witness. I didn't touch the footage again until the house was empty. She'd gone to work, her perfume still, hanging in the air, The faint trace of her lipstick on the rim of the coffee mug she forgot. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, cursor blinking like a heartbeat on the paused frame. The man's name was Imran, my friend, my brother once. He'd helped me move into this house. He'd eaten at this table. He'd given me advice on marriage when things started falling apart, said, "She just needs time. Women drift. That's all." And now I could see him in the reflection of my own hallway, moving like he owned it. My hand shook as I pressed play again. There he was, walking toward the stairs, his shoes soundless against the wood. Then her silhouette appeared at the top landing, robe loose, hair down, the way she only wore it for me once, the way she smiled when she saw him. It wasn't surprise, it was memory. Something inside me twisted so hard I almost laughed. Not the kind of laughter that means you're fine. The kind that breaks through the cracks of your sanity like water through old stone. I muted the clip. I couldn't listen to them. I couldn't bear to hear what her voice sounded like when it wasn't mine she was whispering to. Instead, I focused on details. The kind of details you cling to when emotion becomes too dangerous. The timestamp. The way her hand brushed his shoulder. The way she checked the hallway camera before she stepped closer. As if she knew. Did she? Did she somehow know I was watching, even before I did? My head was spinning, but the cold part of me, the part that always survives, started taking notes. I copied the file to a folder, renamed it Night 1 MP4, then another, and another. By the end of the day, I'd found 3 more clips, 3 more betrayals, different nights. Same man, each one worse than the last. You'd think pain builds, but it doesn't. It folds. It layers itself quietly, neatly, like sheets you'll never use again. By evening, I wasn't sad anymore, just still, quiet in a way that scared even me. That night, she came home around 10. I was sitting on the couch, watching some mindless show, laughter track playing like static. She kissed me on the cheek. Her skin was cold. I didn't kiss back. "Rough day?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah. You?" She smiled. "The same." I watched her cross the room, the sway of her body, the unhurried ease of someone who has no idea they've already been caught. That's when I realized the real cruelty of betrayal isn't in the act itself. It's in the way they still breathe near you, still share the same air, the same walls, while you're dying from what they've done. Later that night, when she fell asleep, I sat in the dark beside her. The moonlight spilled through the blinds, cutting her face into stripes. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, and I hated her for it. Do you know what hate feels like when it's fresh? It's not anger. It's not even rage. It's focus. It's the sharpness of finally seeing the truth and realizing you're the only one awake inside it. I stared at her for a long time, counting the rhythm of her breathing, memorizing the sound. Because soon, very soon, I knew I'd take that peace away from her. Not violently, not with shouting or chaos, no, quietly. The same way she took it from me. The cameras had shown me the truth. Now they'd show me something else. Control. So I moved through the house like a ghost, checking every device, adjusting angles, adding one near the bedroom door, another behind the TV, one hidden in the plant by the entryway. She'd never notice. No one ever does until it's too late. The next morning, she made breakfast. I didn't eat. I just watched her, smiling when she caught my eye. She thought I was forgiving her for whatever she thought she'd hidden. But forgiveness isn't in my nature anymore. By noon, I had a plan, and every step of it would start right here, with the flicker in the hallway that began it all. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was living in someone else's memory, one that kept looping just to punish me. But beneath the numbness, something sharp was forming, a kind of cold clarity. I started watching the footage every night, not to torture myself anymore, but to study it. Patterns, timing, expressions. Her phone always faced down on the table. Calls after midnight. The same corner of her lips twitching when she lied. She thought she was clever. But lies leave fingerprints, invisible to most, obvious to those who've bled for them. I began writing notes, a timeline, exact and methodical. March 8th, 11:54 p.m. He enters through the back door. March 9th, 12:03 a.m., whispering in the kitchen. March 11th, 1:27 a.m. Bedroom light flickers. March 13th, 2:12 a.m. Silence. Long. Then laughter. Each entry cut deeper, but it also steadied me. Because order brings calm, and calm is the enemy of despair. I wasn't a husband unraveling anymore. I was an investigator building a case. Still, there were moments that pierced through the armor I tried to build, like when she'd brush, her hand across my shoulder as she passed me in the hallway, so effortlessly casual, as if the same hand hadn't clutched another man hours earlier. I'd freeze every time, trying to read if she could feel the disgust under my skin, but she never looked long enough to notice. At night, I'd lie awake and wonder, what does betrayal do to love? Does it kill it instantly? Or does it force it to mutate into something else? Something darker? Stronger? Because I still loved her. In a way that didn't make sense. In a way that made revenge feel not just justified, but sacred. She thought she was safe inside her lie, but lies rot. And I was patient. One evening, I caught her deleting messages on her phone. She didn't see me watching from the hallway mirror. My reflection looked calmer than I felt, almost indifferent. I realized then I'd stopped reacting. That was new. That was dangerous. Later, when she asked if I could fix the Wi-Fi, said it had been slow lately, I smiled. The cameras streamed perfectly fine. It wasn't the Wi-Fi that was breaking. It was her story. I took my time, pretended to check the router, rewired nothing. Just listened as she hummed softly from the kitchen, unaware that the man she'd betrayed had already mapped her whole world. And when she left the next day, I went to that same kitchen, placed a small note inside the cabinet above the coffee mugs. Just 5 words. I saw everything. Keep smiling. A warning or a promise? I wasn't sure yet. But the thought of her finding it, of her hands trembling as she read it, thrilled me. That night, I didn't review the cameras. I didn't need to. I sat on the same couch where I'd first heard the sound that changed everything, staring into the blue light flickering across the wall. The house felt alive again. Not with love, with truth. And truth, once you taste it, is addictive. Maybe I'd become someone else entirely. Maybe I'd lost the man I was trying to protect. But when you've been lied to long enough, morality starts to sound like a bedtime story told to children who haven't yet met the real world. So I waited, calm, patient, watching her live inside the illusion she'd built, unaware that every smile, every step, every lie was now part of a silent documentary. My documentary. Because betrayal isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of control. And as I turned off the lights and let the darkness settle, I whispered to the empty hallway, softly, almost tenderly, "Smile for the camera, love." The house said nothing. But somewhere, deep in the wires and the whir of the hidden lenses, I felt it watching back. The flicker had returned, and this time, it was mine. You ever watch your own life as if it belongs to someone else? Like you're sitting in a dark theater, watching a movie that used to be yours. Except this time, you already know how it ends. That's what it felt like. My life, stripped down to grainy pixels, replaying itself over and over on a cold screen. Each clip, each frame, a stranger's marriage unraveling in perfect 1080p clarity. She didn't even look nervous. That's what killed me first. The way she smiled when she thought no one was watching. The way she brushed her hair behind her ear as if she were waiting for someone who made her feel alive again. And then he appeared. The same man I once called brother. The sound of his voice through the small, tinny speakers made my skin crawl. He whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but it made her laugh. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months, soft, unguarded, almost innocent. It shattered me, not because of what they did, but because of what I saw in her eyes. Joy, genuine joy, something she never gave me anymore. I sat there, frozen, the light from the monitor flickering against my face. Rewind, play, pause. Rewind again. Each time I pressed that button, I hoped it would change. That maybe this time she'd turn away. Maybe she'd hesitate. But she never did. My fingers trembled. Not from anger. From disbelief. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't scream. It just sinks, like a weight, heavy and quiet, until it becomes part of your body. She looked happy, not guilty, not scared, happy. And that broke me in a way rage never could. I couldn't stop watching. It became ritual. Night after night, I'd sit in that same chair, the blue glow of the monitor the only light in the room, and press play. I memorized their rhythm, their timing, their laughter. I could predict the next glance before it happened. I could almost hear their breathing before the mic picked it up. The footage stopped being evidence. It became prophecy. Every second, every glance was a message, a warning, and the message was simple. She doesn't belong to you anymore. That realization should have broken me, but instead, it rebuilt me, differently. The pain started to sharpen into something else, something quieter, colder. I stopped crying, stopped trembling. I leaned closer to the screen and whispered to my own reflection in the black glass between clips. You deserve to see this. Because you can't heal from what you don't face, right? That's what people say. But no one tells you what happens when you keep facing it, when you stare at it long enough that it starts staring back. After hours of watching, I started seeing details I'd missed. Tiny ones that cut deeper than the act itself. The way her perfume lingered in the hallway longer than usual. The faint red of wine stains on two glasses she left to dry by the sink. Her sudden obsession with working late. The same excuse she used when I'd ask about her phone being on silent. Every lie was a breadcrumb. Every excuse a map. And I followed them, step by step, deeper into the forest, until I wasn't sure who was hunting who anymore. By the third night, I stopped looking at them. I started looking at myself, the version of me sitting there in the reflection of the monitor. Pale, tired, hollow. I looked like a ghost, haunting my own home. That's when it hit me. Maybe I'd been dead long before she betrayed me. Maybe she just noticed it first. And that thought, that one stuck. Because maybe this wasn't her crime alone. Maybe it was the punishment for all the quiet ways I'd stopped showing up. The nights I stayed silent instead of saying I missed her. The times I let routine replace touch. But even that guilt couldn't save her. Because by now, the pain had transformed. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was purpose. And purpose doesn't forgive. That's when I decided I was done watching. I remember shutting the laptop for the first time in days. The sound of it closing felt final, like the snap of a door locking. But the silence that followed was unbearable. My house, my sanctuary, suddenly felt foreign. Every object had weight now, every room a ghost inside it. The hallway where she kissed him. The kitchen where she lied to me with a smile. The bed where she still slept like nothing had changed. That's the cruelty of betrayal. It doesn't happen somewhere else. It happens here, in the same rooms where you built your life. That night, I sat in the living room, lights off, eyes open. I could still hear her laughter, not real, not present, just the echo of it from the footage, looping in my mind like a broken reel. My fingers tapped against the armrest in rhythm with it. I hated that I remembered the sound so perfectly. She came down later, sleepy-eyed, wearing the robe she'd worn that night with him. That same robe. I could smell her perfume before she even entered the room. The same scent that had filled the hallway the night I saw the footage. "Why are you up?" she asked softly. I smiled. The kind of smile you practice in the mirror when you're trying not to let the truth spill out too soon. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Just thinking." She walked closer, her silhouette framed by the faint blue glow of the TV. Her face was soft, familiar, trusting. She touched my shoulder, and my chest tightened. Not from love, but from restraint. I could feel the lie beneath her skin, warm and alive. When she kissed my cheek and turned away, I caught myself staring at the curve of her neck. The same place he'd touched her. I wanted to forget, but forgetting is a mercy reserved for the innocent, and I wasn't innocent anymore. When she went back upstairs, I sat there for a long time, listening to the house breathe. Then I reopened the laptop. The footage came alive again, grainy, unforgiving. I played it at half speed this time, studying her expressions frame by frame. The way she hesitated before touching him, the brief flicker of guilt. Or was it fear? That crossed her face when he whispered something in her ear. It was subtle, but it was there. A pause. Maybe part of her still remembered me. Maybe, in that split second, she thought of what we used to be. But she didn't stop. And that's when I knew she chose this. The clarity was almost soothing. There's peace in certainty, even the kind that destroys you. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, letting the realization settle like dust after an explosion. She was gone long before I noticed. And I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone quieter, someone who didn't shake or cry or beg anymore. The next morning, I followed her routine, not to confront, but to confirm. The lies had rhythm, I realized, patterns. She left home every day at 8:15. Her phone stayed on silent from 8:30 to 9:45. Then a gap. No calls, no texts, until 11. That's when the messages resumed. "Traffic's bad." "Meeting ran late." "Don't wait for dinner." I didn't need to ask who those messages were really for. It's funny. People think revenge starts with anger. But it doesn't. It starts with understanding. The kind that makes you eerily calm, like a surgeon tracing the outline of a wound before cutting. That night, I didn't watch the footage again. I didn't need to. I'd already memorized every second of it. Instead, I began deleting copies from the laptop, one by one. Not to erase the memory. No, I wanted that to stay, but to control it. I'd keep only one file, the original, night1.mp4, the artifact of her undoing. I stored it on a flash drive, locked inside my desk drawer. My hand lingered there longer than it should have, fingers brushing the metal. It felt cold, heavy, real. That's when I caught myself whispering something I didn't recognize in my own voice. A promise, maybe. Not yet. The words slipped out like a secret I'd been keeping from myself. Because it wasn't time. Not yet. Let her keep lying. Let her keep laughing. Let her keep walking through this house believing the world hadn't already shifted beneath her feet. I wanted her to feel safe, to feel normal, because safety makes the fall hurt more. So I smiled again, played my part, and kissed her good night. Her lips were warm. Mine weren't. She closed her eyes first. I didn't. The screen of the laptop glowed faintly from across the room, casting light on the flash drive's metal edge. A sliver of silver that caught the dark just right. It looked like a blade, and for the first time since it all began, I slept peacefully, because I finally knew what to do. Morning arrived slow, golden, and dishonest. The kind of morning that pretends everything is fine. She brewed coffee, humming under her breath, her voice sweet and hollow. I sat at the table, half listening, watching the steam rise from her cup like smoke from a fire that hadn't finished burning. The footage still haunted me, playing behind my eyes like a second life. I'd see her smile in the reflection of the spoon. Hear that laughter in the hum of the refrigerator? Every ordinary sound was poisoned now. Everything she touched carried a memory I didn't want. But I played along. That's the trick, isn't it? The art of pretending. I laughed when she spoke. I asked about her day. I made her breakfast, and even kissed her forehead when she left. I became the husband she always wanted. Attentive, calm, harmless. But beneath that calm, something else was building. A quiet storm. After she left, I went to the study and opened the drawer. The flash drive was still there, silver and cold against my skin. I plugged it in. The file opened instantly. No password, no barrier. Just her face, smiling, frozen, mid-frame. It struck me how beautiful she still looked in betrayal. How composed. How complete. There was something unfair about that she could destroy everything and still look untouched. I paused the video on her smile. "You're perfect," I whispered to the empty room. Perfect at pretending. I should have deleted it then. Should have spared myself the pain of watching again. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because pain, when it's familiar, becomes a strange kind of comfort. The more I watched, the more I began to understand something terrifying. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I already had that. What I wanted now was control. The footage was power. Quiet, undeniable power. And for the first time in weeks, I felt stronger than her. Stronger than both of them. That night, when she came home, she looked tired. I could tell she'd been somewhere else. Somewhere that still smelled faintly of him. I didn't ask. I just watched her pour herself a glass of wine, sip it slowly, her fingers tapping the counter in rhythm with her heartbeat. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I looked up from my phone, pretending to be distracted. "Just tired," she smiled, that same rehearsed smile, and walked upstairs. When I heard the shower start, I took out my phone and opened the security app. The live feed blinked to life. The camera in the hallway caught the steam slipping under the bathroom door, soft light glowing beneath it. I zoomed in on the reflection in the hallway mirror, her silhouette blurred but visible. I told myself I was only watching because I didn't trust her. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't just watching her. I was watching me. The version of myself that used to love her. The version that still wanted to. Because love doesn't die clean. It decays, slowly, and the rot spreads everywhere. When she came out, wrapped in that same white towel, she caught me staring. For a split second, something flashed in her eyes. Suspicion, maybe, or fear. But she brushed it off, the way guilty people do. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect," I said. She nodded, hesitated, then kissed me goodnight. The scent of her skin lingered long after she was gone. I sat there in the dark, motionless, until the sound of her breathing filled the house. That's when I whispered it. Soft, certain, final. "I forgive you." But forgiveness isn't mercy. Not the kind I was planning. Forgiveness is a door you open to let someone walk through, not knowing there's a cliff on the other side. So I sat there, in the glow of the security monitor, replaying the night one last time. Every movement, every breath, every laugh. And I realized something brutal. She wasn't scared of being caught, because she didn't think I could do anything about it. And maybe she was right. Once. But not anymore. Because tomorrow. I wouldn't be watching the footage. Tomorrow. I'd start writing the ending, and this time, it would be mine. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. How far I'd go. That's the strange gift of betrayal. It doesn't kill you right away. It teaches you patience, a quiet kind. The kind that feels like sitting in a dark room, listening for a sound that may never come. So I became quiet, observant, almost gentle. She thought I'd softened, that the tension had finally burned itself out. I let her believe it. That was the first step, to become invisible inside my own house, to move like a shadow she'd stopped noticing. It's a dangerous thing when a man stops reacting, because silence, real silence, isn't peace. It's pressure, waiting to break. I started studying her the way a thief studies a locked door. Her tone when she said my name, the shift in her posture when my phone buzzed, the way her hands trembled slightly whenever she lied. Every detail became data, every smile, evidence, and yet, God help me, I still loved her. I'd catch myself remembering small things, the sound of her laugh in the car when a song from our early years played, the way she'd fall asleep mid-sentence, her hand finding mine even in dreams. Sometimes I'd watch her and almost forget. Almost. Until I'd see the way she checked her reflection before answering a message, or the faint smirk that passed across her lips when she thought I wasn't looking. That's when love became observation, and observation became obsession. Some nights, I'd wake up and just watch her sleep. The same woman whose voice could once turn my heart inside out now made it hard to breathe. Her breathing was soft, rhythmic, almost innocent. And I'd think, if she ever knew I knew, that thought gave me something close to pleasure. Not joy, not satisfaction, something darker, something like power. Because power, I've learned, isn't in the confrontation. It's in the waiting, the knowing, the ability to hold the truth like a blade behind your back and smile as if it isn't there. I'd watch her stir in her sleep, brush hair from her face, whisper my name unconsciously, and I'd whisper back, too quiet for her to hear, "Keep dreaming, love. Keep dreaming. Revenge, after all, isn't a scream. It's a whisper that waits." And mine was almost ready. She must have sensed something had changed. The air between us grew heavier, though neither of us dared to name it. There were pauses in our conversations now, seconds too long, breaths that carried questions neither of us would ask. She'd say, "You've been distant lately." I'd smile, "Just tired." And she'd believe me, because that's what liars do. They trust too easily when they think they're the only ones deceiving. I began testing her boundaries. Small, deliberate cracks in the act. Leaving my phone face down on the table. Coming home earlier than expected. Watching her expression tighten, then soften as she scrambled to cover. I could read her now like a book I'd already finished once, pretending not to know how it ends. But what haunted me most wasn't her lies. It was the familiarity. The same eyes that once looked at me with love now looked at me with calculation. I recognized it because it was my own reflection. One evening, she asked, "Do you still love me?" The question hit like a quiet explosion. I looked at her, really looked. She stood by the window, framed by fading sunlight, that same tired sadness clouding her eyes. For a heartbeat, I almost said yes, but I didn't. Instead, I reached out, brushed my thumb across her cheek, and said softly, "Why wouldn't I?" Her lips trembled, a lie forming, maybe dying on its way out. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, and in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. She was scared, not of me, of herself, of the version of her that had crossed the line and couldn't come back. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan and the soft cadence of her breath. The urge to wake her, to tell her I knew everything, nearly tore through me. I wanted to see the truth in her eyes, to hear her admit it, not for closure, but for the satisfaction of watching her world collapse. But I didn't move, because the truth, once spoken, ends the game. And I wasn't ready for it to end, so I stayed still, memorizing the sound of her breathing. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was alive. It pulsed with secrets, tension, the weight of everything unsaid. Days passed like that. Conversations turned mechanical, touches turned ghostly. The house became an echo chamber of things we didn't say. But beneath it all, I could feel the shift. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know when, and I found myself enjoying that. The way she flinched when I entered a room, the way she laughed too hard at small jokes, trying to fill the silence, the way she kept glancing at me as if searching for the man she used to know. He was gone. I buried him somewhere between her lies and my silence. Now there was only me, the observer, the judge, the quiet executioner of her peace. Still, I couldn't hate her completely. That was the hardest part, because love doesn't vanish. It mutates. It becomes something colder, sharper, something that hurts beautifully. Some nights, when she'd turn in her sleep and her hand brushed mine, I'd almost let myself believe it could all go back to before. Then I'd remember the footage, the laughter, the way she touched him, and I'd pull my hand away. The silence between us grew louder, and I stopped fearing it, because silence is honest. It doesn't lie. And soon, very soon, it would speak for both of us. It was a Thursday when I finally decided. Nothing dramatic, just another quiet day painted over a decaying truth. She was humming again, cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and butter filled the kitchen. Ordinary, comforting, too ordinary. I watched her from the doorway, my reflection faint in the glass cabinet behind her. She didn't notice me, or maybe she pretended not to. That's when it struck me. The cruelty of routine. How it fools you into thinking things are fine while everything rots underneath. I walked over, set the table, poured 2 glasses of water. She smiled, tired but polite. "You're early today," she said. I nodded. "Wanted to spend some time with you." She froze just long enough for me to see it. That flicker of unease. That small, involuntary pause between guilt and fear. We ate in silence, forks against plates, the ticking clock, the sound of her breathing. I watched her closely, every gesture, every glance. It was like watching an actor forget her lines mid-scene. When the meal ended, she reached for my hand, automatic, rehearsed, and I let her hold it. Her skin was warm. Mine wasn't. "I'm glad things feel normal again," she whispered. I smiled. "They will. Soon." That night she fell asleep before me as usual. I sat by the window, listening to the wind tapping against the glass. My reflection stared back at me, hollow-eyed and calm. I realized then I didn't need to expose her. I didn't need to destroy her life the way she'd destroyed mine, because she'd already done it herself. All I had to do was let the silence finish what it started. And as she slept, peaceful and unaware, I whispered into the dark, "You'll see, love. The truth doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs time." I stood there until dawn, watching the light crawl across the room, feeling the shift, the quiet kind of ending no one hears coming. The silence between us wasn't punishment anymore. It was justice. The day came like any other, calm, ordinary, cruelly unsuspecting. Morning light slid across the kitchen counter, warm and golden, touching the rim of her coffee cup, the one that still bore a faint trace of her lipstick. She was humming softly, a habit she had when she felt safe. It made me sick, that illusion of peace, that lie she wrapped herself in so easily. Her hair was tied back, her face serene. The kind of beauty that makes you forget what it's capable of. She moved through the kitchen, pouring milk into her mug, adjusting her purse strap, all routine. Normal, familiar, but I'd been awake for hours. I'd set everything in motion before dawn. The phone on the counter, camera quietly recording, its red light hidden under a thin layer of paper. She didn't notice. She never noticed what mattered. I'd already sent the message. From her number. To him, simple, plain. Come by. We need to talk. I wanted him to walk into my house the same way he walked into my life. Casual, confident, uninvited. She didn't know. Not yet. She turned, saw me sitting at the table, calm, quiet, watching her. My hands were wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. I was smiling. Not the kind of smile that comforts, but the kind that warns. Something in her expression faltered. "Morning," she said, her voice too bright. I didn't answer. I just kept looking at her, like she was a puzzle I'd already solved but was pretending to study again. Then I said it. I saw everything. The words slipped out soft, almost tender, like a confession. And yet, they hit her like a bullet. The color drained from her face so fast, it was almost fascinating. Her hand trembled. The mug clinked against the counter. She blinked once, twice, like maybe she'd misheard. What? What do you mean? I leaned back, took a breath I didn't need. You know what I mean. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Thick. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a dog outside. But inside, the world had stopped breathing. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. And for a long second, she just stood there, a statue carved out of guilt. Then came the flood. Tears. Denial. The usual. She said my name like it could save her. Whispered promises, explanations, half-truths tangled in panic. She tried to move toward me, but I raised a hand, and she froze. "I've heard enough," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to, because I'd already lived this moment 100 times in my head. Every scream, every excuse, every pathetic plea. Now that it was real, it almost felt small. That's the strange thing about truth. When you finally drag it into the light, it shrinks. It loses the power it had in the dark. She started pacing, clutching her phone, glancing at the door like a trapped animal. "It's not what you think," she kept saying, over and over. But I didn't think anymore. I knew, then, a sound outside, a car pulling in. Her eyes darted toward the window, panic blooming in them like fire. I didn't turn. I didn't have to. I already knew who it was. Everything was in place. The knock came. 3 soft raps against the door. Familiar. Confident. Her body stiffened. My gaze stayed on her. "Are you going to get that?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, it's probably him." I finished. Her silence was answer enough. I stood up slowly, every movement deliberate. She took a step back as if she'd seen a ghost. Maybe she had. The man standing before her wasn't the husband she betrayed. Not anymore. I opened the door. He was standing there. Imran, my once friend. His expression shifted from confusion to dread the moment he saw me. He tried to speak, but I stepped aside and gestured toward the living room. "Come in," I said quietly. He hesitated. Then, like all cowards, he obeyed. The air thickened the moment he crossed the threshold. She stood frozen by the counter, her hand still clutching her phone. her lips trembling. He looked at her, then at me, and I could see the flicker of realization in his eyes. "What's going on?" he asked, voice thin. I smiled, the same soft, dangerous smile I'd worn all morning. "I thought you two might want to talk. After all, you've been avoiding me long enough." He swallowed hard. "Listen, it's not—" "Save it," I said. My voice cut clean, quiet, final. "I've heard your voice before. Every whisper, every laugh." Her sobs filled the silence, but I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on him. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt, that helpless, naked exposure. He tried to step forward, tried to explain, but the words died in his throat when I set the phone on the table. The video was already playing. The same hallway, the same faces, the same betrayal. They watched themselves unravel in real time. Her knees gave out first. She collapsed into the chair, face buried in her hands. He just stood there, pale, sweating, jaw clenched tight. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The silence was saying everything for me. Finally, I spoke. "Do you know what's worse than betrayal?" I asked softly. "It's realizing the people you trusted most still thought you'd never find out." No one answered. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. "Truth doesn't kill. It burns. And I saw it then. The flicker of fear in both their eyes. That was enough. That was everything." I didn't shout. I didn't throw anything. I just turned off the phone, pocketed it, and walked past them. Because this wasn't revenge. This was revelation. And revelations don't need noise. They just need witnesses. I didn't look back as I stepped outside. The morning air hit me like a baptism. Cold, sharp, honest. Behind me, the sound of sobbing, muffled voices, confusion. The house that once held love now echoed with truth. And that was enough for me. People think closure comes from confrontation. It doesn't. It comes from knowing the silence afterward belongs to you. I sat in the car, staring at the steering wheel, my pulse steady, my breathing calm. The rage that once consumed me had vanished, replaced by something quieter. Not forgiveness, not peace, just emptiness. But it was my emptiness, mine alone. I started the engine, let it idle for a while, watching the reflection of the house in the rearview mirror. The curtains shifted slightly, her silhouette in the window, small and still. For a second, I wondered what she was thinking. Regret? Shame? Fear? Maybe nothing. Maybe she was as hollow as I felt. Either way, it didn't matter. Because in that moment, I realized this was never about destroying her. It was about reclaiming myself from the version of me she'd broken. And I'd done that. The truth had walked in, uninvited and merciless, and it had burned everything false to the ground. Now, all that remained was silence. Pure, cleansing, final. I shifted into drive and whispered, "Goodbye," not to her, but to the man I'd been before all of this. As the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, I didn't smile. I didn't cry, I just drove. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. I felt free. I never removed the cameras. Why would I? They were my only honest witnesses. Silent eyes in every corner, staring, remembering, judging nothing, just recording. Maybe I kept them because I couldn't trust my memory anymore. Or maybe because I wanted her to know, even after she left, that she was still being watched. By me, by truth, by the ghosts we'd created in this house. She moved out a week later. No fights, no closure. Just distance. Her absence didn't feel like relief. It felt like when a wound finally stops bleeding. Not because it's healed, but because it's empty. I remember the morning she left. She didn't cry. She didn't even say my name. Just packed her things quietly, one drawer at a time. The sound of the zippers, the faint rustle of clothes, the click of her suitcase wheels. All of it still echoes in the walls. She hesitated at the door once, her hand brushing the frame. Maybe she wanted to say something. Maybe she just wanted to remember what it felt like to stand in the place where she'd destroyed everything. Why didn't stop her? I just watched, arms crossed, calm. The cameras caught it all, of course. Every glance, every hesitation. I watched that clip later, not out of nostalgia, but to confirm that I hadn't imagined her lack of remorse. When the door shut behind her, the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was aftermath. I still walk through the house at night sometimes. The walls echo differently now. Lighter, emptier. Like they're relieved she's gone, but not sure what to do with the quiet she left behind. The living room still smells faintly of her perfume. Jasmine, with something artificial underneath, like sweetness stretched too thin. The kitchen feels cleaner, the bed colder, every corner sharper. I thought freedom would feel like air rushing back into my lungs. It didn't. It felt like standing underwater. Still, heavy, suspended between what was and what's left. I replayed that morning in my head for days. The way she didn't look back. The way I didn't ask her to. The way my hands stayed steady even when my chest didn't. I think part of me wanted her to see what she'd done to me. The other part wanted her gone so I could stop performing the role of the man she broke. But the cameras stayed. Always on, always humming. At first, it was habit. Then it became ritual. I'd sit in the dark, watching the empty rooms on my phone screen. Hallway, living room, kitchen, bedroom, each one frozen in silence, perfectly still. Sometimes I'd imagine seeing her walk through again, a flicker of her shadow, a phantom smile. But there was never anyone there. Only me? Still, I couldn't bring myself to turn them off, because somewhere deep down I think I needed them. Not to catch anyone else, but to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that what I saw, what I lived through, actually happened. Maybe that's what obsession really is. Not love, not hate, but the refusal to let something fade. The house knew everything. It had seen it all. Every lie whispered, every touch stolen, every tear swallowed in silence. I guess that's why I couldn't erase it. Because if I deleted those eyes, who would remember what she did? No one should suffer alone, not even me. Nights became quieter, but never kind. I'd wake to the sound of creaking wood, or the soft hum of the camera in the corner. Sometimes I'd talk to them. The lenses, the little black circles staring back at me from the shadows. You remember, don't you? I'd whisper. You saw it too. There was comfort in that. The idea that something else, even if mechanical, bore witness to the truth. I didn't need forgiveness. I needed proof. And now, I had it. I started recording myself without realizing it. Pacing, talking, drinking, sitting by the window. I watched those recordings later, and for the first time, I saw what she must have seen in me near the end. A man unraveling, quietly, deliberately. A man trying to rebuild himself out of pieces that didn't fit anymore. But there was something new in my eyes, something steadier. A calm that comes when pain becomes part of your anatomy. People say forgiveness is strength. They say you have to let go to move on. But they never tell you that letting go feels like dying slowly, like killing the version of yourself that still cared. I think forgiveness is just a polite word for forgetting. And I've never been good at that. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see her face. Not the woman she was when I met her, but the one who lied without blinking. The one who taught me that love isn't blind. It's willfully ignorant. I see her reflection in windows, in mirrors, even in puddles on rainy days. Once, I heard her laughter through the static of the baby monitor I kept from when things were good. That hollow, recorded laugh, looping like a ghost, trying to remind me she was still around somewhere. Maybe I'm haunted. Or maybe the house just remembers better than I do. Because every time I walk past the hallway camera, I feel its gaze follow me. Every night, when I sit alone in the dark, I can almost hear the faint echo of her voice through the speakers. Not words, just presence, and I don't flinch anymore. I let it play, because now everything is recorded. Every secret, every lie, every truth I didn't want to see. I used to think that was my curse, to relive it forever. But maybe it's my freedom, because now I know exactly who I am. I am the witness, the archivist, the one who remembers when everyone else forgets. And sometimes, when the house settles at night and the cameras hum softly, I whisper into the silence, not out of madness, but out of habit. I forgive you. Then I pause and add, quietly, but I won't forget. The days move slower now. The light shifts through the windows differently. Sometimes I'll catch a shadow moving across the hallway wall and almost greet it, thinking it's her, coming home again. But it never is. It's just the house breathing, remembering. I've learned to live inside the silence. It's not empty anymore. It's full of echoes, full of proof. People ask if I'll sell the house, start over somewhere new. I always smile and say, not yet, because this place, this broken, hollow, haunted place, is the only one that still tells the truth. The world outside forgets too easily. But not here, not these walls, not me. Sometimes, late at night, I'll replay the oldest footage. Not the affair, not the betrayal, just the early days. Her cooking dinner, laughing over spilled wine, sitting by the window in that red sweater. I watch those moments not because I miss her, but because they remind me how far gone she is, how far gone we are. I let those memories live here too, like ghosts walking side by side with guilt. Because love, even when it's dead, leaves fingerprints on everything. So, no, I won't turn off the cameras. I won't erase the files. This house and I, we remember together. And maybe that's enough. Because in a world where lies come easy and truth disappears, memory is the only justice that lasts. And I am the one who keeps it alive.